Hello, my name is Lorene. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. I'm going to talk about some other books that I have been reading that aren't on the Newbery Challenge, and I thought were pretty darn good. Now, I've just finished reading the last two books in this series. Number three is Waistcoats and Weapons by Gail Carriger, and number 4 is Manners and Mutiny. And it's the finishing school series about Sofronina, who goes to what would you call her? She learns how to become a spy and an influencer in the oh my gosh, it's sort of a steampunk kind of Regency type of time period, and based on, I've talked about book 1 and I think book 2. So she's continuing to learn how to be someone who's infiltrating society, and they're solving problems with respect to machinery and crystals, and the vampires and werewolves are all getting embroiled, and she has a love interest that might be going somewhere, and another love interest that shouldn't go somewhere but just might, and then her friends are all sort of branching out into their own particular personalities and specialties for spying and rescuing each other from trials and tribulations. It's a lark. It's completely ridiculous. They've got lessons in how to use the fan as a weapon, and it's just silliness, and it's definitely geared for someone who's looking for a bit of a grin. So I think it's geared for maybe, I think that 11, 12-year-olds could get into it, early YA. So I think it's a really solid series. I also think, thank goodness, all 4 of the books are done, because I really don't enjoy reading a series that isn't completely finished. So I did my favorite thing of after the first one, I got all the next 3 and just binged through them. Now, she also writes another one, I think it's called the Parasol Protectorate, if I'm not mistaken. It's not, which I did read 1 or 2, but I think I read them out of order. They weren't all ready, and wasn't complete. So, yeah, so she does have other books. It's just fun. So this is the school that they went to. We finally get a map of the school in the 4th book, and this school itself, the structure of the school plays quite a large part in the upcoming potential terrorism. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I recommend it. And the other one that I read is one that was been on my list for quite a number of years. It came recommended to me from Horn Book. It's 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All by Laura Ruby. Laura Ruby also wrote Bone Gap, which I don't think I've read, but Bone Gap, it says right here, a National Book Award finalist and Prince Award winner. Right, and now this book is also a National Award finalist and winner of the Michael Prince Award, so that's cool. It was published in 2019. Oh, it was really something interesting. We've got Francesca, and her sister, Toni, Antonina. They're both children of Sicilian parents, and it takes place between World War I and World War II. So we get to know the story of the parents a little bit in the early years, but what happens prior to World War II, if you're having troubles in the States, if you're having troubles raising your children, you can take them to an orphanage, and the sisters or whomever will look after your children. So you don't actually have to have dead parents to be an orphan. And so the parents will quite often visit the kids at the orphanage and maybe bring some food or bring some clothing, things along that kind of line. So they are not 100% alone in the world. Frankie and Toni know that Dad is still around, and what he's done, cheeky bugger, he's fallen in love with another woman and has decided that her children that are also in the orphanage will be taken out, and they're going to go to Colorado and leave Frankie and Toni behind. There's also an older brother, Vito, that we don't get to know too much because he's just that much older, and the girls and boys are not allowed to meet. And of course there's a sort of typical issues, and the author really based these parts of the stories on the stories of her grandmother, who had been in an orphanage. So we see the actual life of the grandmother, whose name was also Francesca. And so what she's done is, no, I'm sorry, Frances, not Francesca. She also is bringing to life her grandmother's story, although we don't know that until the afterward. And there's troubles around lack of food and, clothing that doesn't fit, and being cold, and being brutalized by the nuns. And there isn't any sexual abuse, thank God, but those nuns sure know how to throw a belt around. There's all kinds of psychological not goodness. Now, when World War II breaks out, this turns out to be German nuns who are running this orphanage. So a whole lot of other kinds of crazy stuff going on. And we're seeing the lives of Frankie and Tony as they're trying to navigate. Dad's abandoning them. What are they going to do in the future? As the war is sort of building up in intensity, there's a straining between the boys and the girls to, one last kind of get-together thing. So there's tension around that. There's some very interesting sub-stories around sort of relationships. There's also some very interesting storylines around memory, how Frankie remembers some parts about her mother and family life, and Tony doesn't. She's 3 years younger, and just the conflict that arises out of them both really wanting to hang on to their memories, and do they remember it correctly or not? And Vito remembers things his way, and Dad remembers his, completely self-exonerates himself from any wrongdoing. He doesn't see that he's really abandoned these kids. He sees that he's made life better for them by leaving them in the orphanage. Well, what's happening along at the same time is there's a whole pile of ghost stories, and this is what makes this book really interesting, is there is a ghost, we don't know her name right away, and she's using the orphanage as a way to sort of keep her psyche grounded, if that makes sense for a ghost. And she comes across other ghosts. We get to meet Marguerite, who's a bartender, and there's another one whose name I won't give away because that's part of this challenge there. And we get to know their stories, or some of their stories, and how they came to be dead, and why they're not moving on. And one of the questions is, do you want to move on, or don't you want to move on? And how do you if you want to? And so there's quite some interesting ghost dilemmas going on at the same time. And these are very well woven together. You're in Frankie's, and then the next paragraph you're in one of the really the main ghost, and the ghost is the main narrator. We're seeing the story entirely from the ghost's point of view. So if you don't love my point of view, and then the character's point of view, and then that sort of back and forth, you're not going to enjoy this book. But if you can sort of shift point of views fairly easily, then I think you'll love it. I really enjoyed this. I recommended it to my husband. It's got some very interesting flavors of Chicago in it, and some very interesting flavors of what it was like to be in the early years of the war as a young person. And I think she's just really covered quite a lot of interesting topics. Interesting. That's the main summation of this book. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. I didn't give it a full 5 simply because I had to do... No, why didn't I give it a 5? I think I was just lazy. Could have had a 5, could have had a 4, settled at 4.5. So that's my second recommendation along with that series, and I will be back next time with some more Newbery thoughts. Take care of yourselves. I hope it's not so rainy where you are, and I hope your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true. Bye-bye for now.